welcome to the program. This is your host, Greg Fenton. Each week, we explore topics and ideas related to the experience of people with conflict and look to promote the profession of conflict resolvers. We are available to connect with by email at fentonmediation@gmail.com and by calling 647-227-4734. Visit us at our Facebook page to like us and Facebook group page to ask to become a member. Also visit YouTube channel Fenton Mediation to see videos of past shows. Listen to podcasts of Mediation Station on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. Please follow us at our Twitter account at Fenton Mediation. Let me share about an upcoming program that's coming, I don't know, next week, I believe, or very soon. There's another option now available for individuals looking to become accredited as a family mediator in Ontario. Ontario Association for Family Mediation, OAFM, is now providing that 80 of the 100 hours of practicum experience can be completed using simulated cases. The final 20 hours of the practicum must be completed with real clients. Family Mediation Practicum Ontario is providing, through its OAFM approved course, this experience starting later this September. Within, I don't know, I think it's like the 29th of September.
That's right.
That's the first day of the gig. So if you're considering it, please check out the webpage, familymediation.pccs.ca. Just to let you know too that all classes are online with real-time feedback. And tonight, the conversation is called, let's see, what's it called? Mediators and lawyers working on their relationship and family matters. And with me is Neeraj Goel, and he'll be momentarily with me. You see him there, and we'll talk about this whole story. First, I want to share the program is live each Sunday night from 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We will engage in conversation with everyone attending, able to listen and watch. Microphones and webcams will be closed. If anyone wants to contribute, there are two options. One is to see the chat icon as a bubble at the bottom center of your screen for you to click to then type in a comment or question, and then click to send. Or you can click on the reactions icon that is also located on the bottom center of your screen, and then click in within that, the hand icon for us to see you want to speak. We will open your microphone only for you to share your comment or question, and then close the microphone again. The show is being recorded for both video and audio purposes and will be available for public access on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts afterwards. So as I mentioned, with me and on display in that other corner of visible presence is Neeraj Goel, and we're going to talk about mediators and lawyers working on their relationship and family matters. How are you doing, Neeraj?
I'm very good, thank you, Greg, and I'm very honored to be here for a second time.
Yes, it's a return visit, which, you were here, I'm not sure exactly, a few months ago.
Yeah, I think in June.
Yeah, and we had another conversation. Then you've been previously with me through the radio format.
Yes.
You called into the station when I was sitting at the station, and we had a nice conversation then too. So I appreciate you being with me continually. So how about you do a little icebreaker, sort of.
Okay.
Share with me one word that comes to mind regarding the word law, and then separately, one word that comes to mind for the word mediation.
I think for law, I'm going to say rights is the word that comes to mind first. And for mediation, it'll be, I don't know why, I think of the word conciliation.
Conciliation, yeah.
Conciliation.
Okay. We'll explore those a little bit further into the conversation tonight.
Yeah, sure.
So what's the traditional view that society or people at large tends to have for a lawyer and what they do?
Probably what they see on TV, when that there have been so many TV shows, LA Law, Boston Legal, you name it, right? All these different shows where lawyers are the hard-hitting professionals who are there to sometimes, if they're criminal lawyers, they're there to prosecute people, or they're defense lawyers, or in the family law context, they're the ones who are hitting the table in a negotiation or in court and advocating for their client. So I think that's probably the traditional view, and that's never been exactly, that's not been all that lawyers have done. You know, lawyers are also the quiet ones in their office writing out contracts, or you know, on the phone, you know, negotiating. Different law is such a, lawyering is such a vast vast career actually, and but what is sexy is the dramatic things that lawyers do.
Especially for television presentation or movies.
Yeah, exactly. That's right.
That gets that, you know, it's a little controversial in some way, or provocative too, and it gets the oh yeah, it gets the curiosity going, and people wonder.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. I you know, I don't find my work to be boring, but I would say that if people watched me do what I do, they might say it's kind of boring. Can you amp it up, please?
Yeah, get into that shark mode. I want to see the bite in you.
Yeah, I'm getting bored.
Yeah. So how would you define yourself as a practitioner?
Well, can I give you a little bit of a background in terms of who I am in terms of my practice?
For sure.
So yeah, so I was called to the Bar of Ontario in 2000. And in my first 5 years of practice, I was basically just trying to find myself. And I had 5 different contracts in 5 different years. I was a policy lawyer, I was a litigation associate, I was a clinic lawyer. And it was only in 2005 that I decided to hang up my own shingle as a family lawyer and family mediator. And it was just something that came to me that this is what I want to do. I'd never practiced family law before, but I was always interested in that kind of work. So I actually found another lawyer who was willing to sort of take me under her wing. And that's how I got started. And over the last 16 years, my practice has developed where I do non-court family law and family mediation. And I would say that the family mediation component of my practice has grown quite a bit. And the lawyering part of it has kind of receded a little bit. And I'll talk a little bit more about, well, and so what do I do in terms of lawyering now? I'll tell you in a little while. Yeah.
Right.
Or whenever you want.
We'll go with the flow, and you'll see what pops out of my mouth. And, you know, we'll work in the moment and see what. So what is your perspective about what society understands about a mediator and what they do?
I don't think that people have a very good sense of what mediators do at all. They may have just a sort of very peripheral sense that a mediator is a unbiased third-party facilitator, and if they think that, then they're definitely on the right track. But aside from that, family mediation is still. So I'm only talking about family mediation, although other kinds of mediation, it's the same kind of thing. It's still a very much not a well-known commodity practice in our Canadian society.
Yeah, because the default, from my experience, is that when people have these quote conflicts or have issues with another person, there's a couple of traditional ways they deal with it. Either they call the police, come in and fix it, or they sue somebody. They go to court, make papers, and get a claim going or of some form.
Yeah, when people separate, the first thing that their friends might say is, okay, you better get a lawyer. and when are you going to be going to court, right? Those are things that we know as a society to do when people separate. But what people don't know is that they do have a whole bunch of different options in terms of how to separate. And the process is very, very important very early on to see if you can figure that out with your soon-to-be ex-spouse. You know, do you want to have a nasty separation? Do you want to go in court? Sometimes you need to go to court. Sometimes you can sit around the table and actually work out your separation, the terms of your separation.
Yeah, people just don't realize more often than not, they can actually have ownership of their decision making. They can have the power within to talk and decide and determine with the other person what they ideally want, you know, outside of the court system, relative to going into the system where people are giving ownership of the decision making with that third person, the judge.
Exactly. Now, I don't want to be cavalier and say that everyone, you know, shouldn't go to court. You know, I've certainly dealt with a lot of cases, even to this day, where it gets to a place where I am needing to advise my client, listen, I think you should be going to court, right? The court has its place. It's not the place that I go to. I'll send them to one of my colleagues now. But court does have its place still. We still need it. But I don't like to see my clients go there. But sometimes I have to.
So as you've mentioned in reference that you intentionally don't go into court, you don't That's practice right. At the courthouse. Why is that?
I never enjoyed it. So when I started practicing family law in 2005, I did do a couple of court cases. But I full well knew that I didn't want to have a court practice. A court practice does involve dealing with very high conflict clients, high conflict lawyers. It involves a lot of overhead. I'm being very honest with you, Greg, in terms of like what it's about from a lawyer's perspective. And it is, and I would say it's a high stress, high volume kind of practice. And it's not something that suited my personality. And I know many great litigators who it suits them, and thank God for them, because they're on my Rolodex when I need to call a litigator. But it wasn't who I was. I very much felt like I wanted to help people to talk to each other outside the court system. And I also want to continue to be a sole practitioner with not a lot of overhead and not a lot of staff and that kind of thing. And it just made sense, you know, this one-man show that I've continued to run.
So what do you see your qualities in terms of being this collaborator, we'll say, that, you know, you stay outside of the system, though you're part of the system. It's to help support people the best so they don't need to go into the system, at least minimally.
You'll have to ask my clients and colleagues what my qualities are. I don't know.
What do you want? Well, I say one thing is humble.
Thank you. I genuinely just don't. I genuinely want to help them to not go to court and to reach settlement. So experience as a settlement kind of expert is what I'm bringing to the table, and I think I bring a little charm as well. Because sometimes you have to be a little charming as a mediator. So I think, you know, you got to smile. You have to be kind. I'm not saying I'm trying to sell snake oil, but I work on trying to say the right thing at the right time. Compassion is very important in the work that we as mediators and non-court going lawyers have to have.
You know, when you say the word charm, I identify, you have to be a people person. You
You
have to
do.
have those skills on how to connect and forge a relationship with someone, because they're going through a traumatic time or a very profound time in their life. And the relationship is transitioned from being together as intimates or a couple or married. And now this life changing, life altering moment is going to possibly turn into a journey of some form. You know, going into the system, it may be a longer journey.
Yes.
Outside of the system, there's a greater opportunity for it to be more productive and effective.
Yeah, bedside manner. Bedside manner. That's really, really important to me. It's how I look at my clients. It's the fact that you know, I don't think I'm a lawyer who takes a lot of time to get back to a client, right? That's often a complaint that clients have of their lawyers. My lawyer doesn't care about me. They take too much time to get back to me, or you know, they're not quite answering my questions. Those things I really place a premium on.
So put your other hat on, the
Yeah,
mediator hat.
the mediator, right?
Yeah. What's the purpose of a mediator in working with parents with their family matters?
And by the way, it can be non-parents too. It can be spouses, right, who don't have kids. And of course, mediation is not only in the family law context, it's in the estates context, it's in the civil context. So anyways, we're talking about family mediation in particular. So I'm sorry, the question is what, I'm sorry.
What's the purpose of a mediator?
Yeah, what's the purpose?
In working with people?
Well, the purpose, I guess, is to help them to find a cost-effective and amicable way of settling their family law / separation matters without going to court. Or even if they are in court, it's possible to still use mediation.
So, you know, I know that the two modes of practice and approach are very distinct, yet let's just say, how would you see these two models of practice, mediation and law, being able to come together to align to best support people, parents, and their families?
Well, two ways. The first one is that in the early 90s, we had the creation of the collaborative family law movement. In other words, here, created by a lawyer, an American lawyer by the name of Stu Webb, he created a new way for family law lawyers to talk to each other and to help their clients in a separation process. So it was the process of collaborative family law, and I won't get too much into that. But collaborative family law, I feel, is a bit of a hybrid between the adversarial lawyer and the lawyer as a mediator, because as a collaborative family lawyer, you have a role as a facilitator, as a co-facilitator with the other lawyer to help the clients come to settlement. Okay, so that's the first way. And the second way is that the question again is how do the two kind of come together? Oh, the second way is simply that the mediator works with the couple or works with the family, and the lawyers provide independent legal advice for each part of that family.
And to clarify too, that the mediator can and does work with both dimensions of the people and their struggle,
yes,
to facilitate without advocating for one or the other.
Yes.
And then the lawyer, though, does take somewhat a more positional advocacy role for one particular perspective or side.
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't say, I hear what you say, it's positional, but they are representing their client, whether you want to call that positional or not. I mean, it is positional, yes. But what they're doing is they're taking their client aside after the parties have worked in mediation, and they are they are helping their client to understand what they've agreed to in mediation and help them to finally sign that agreement.
That's a collaborative person, though, for sure. Even as a lawyer, I mean,
yes, you have to have a yes. I mean, it's yes, exactly. Well, it's not collaborative family law, but I would say it's a collaborative type of lawyer. Yes,
it's a collaborative mindset of approach to working
yes,
with people to assist them rather than being positional. I say, just to clarify the context and the concepts, it's about positions where one person is against another person's positions. And collaboration is about the interests, my interests, your interests becoming our interests or shared interests somewhat.
That's right.
So when a lawyer is working with a mediator, how do you see the two of them creating that template of collaboration, I'll call it?
Well, I see it as that not all mediators. I think this is a place where lawyers, ILA lawyers. By the way, I'm using the word ILA. It means independent legal advice lawyers,
okay.
And family mediators. Really, I think this is something that we may need more training on. In general, I do feel that family mediators and ILA lawyers are working very, sort of just in their own lane without not a lot of communication between them. But what you're asking is a very big question. How do they work together? Do you mean technically, process-wise, how they work together, or how they should work together? I know I'm sorry to.
No, it's true, because to unpack this, especially to make it more reachable for the people who will access this program, this show, to comprehend it, because one of the essence is it's public education.
Yes.
You know what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
What I'm talking about. It's for the benefit of the people who are going to tap into this, so that the concepts and the ideas resonate much more clearly.
Right, Greg. So I think I want to take a step back for a minute and just talk a little bit about a little bit more about mediation, and a little bit more about ILA, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So a couple. Let's assume it's a couple, and they're in mediation, and they work with their mediator, and then the mediator helps them come up with terms of settlement, and the mediator may draft a mediation report, or the mediator may draft a memorandum of understanding that looks like a formal legal contract or a separation agreement. The mediator will give that agreement or report to the clients and will hopefully tell the clients, hey, now go talk to your own lawyers and get independent legal advice on this contract or report, and they'll help you sign it. Okay, so client A is going to go to their lawyer A. Client B is going to go to their lawyer B. And lawyer A and client A are going to look at this report or memorandum of understanding together. And lawyer A is going to say, okay, client, do you understand what this is? And let me also make sure that you understand what you could have gotten in court, what you could have gotten in law, and what you are getting in this deal. Same thing lawyer B and client B are doing as well. And then the lawyers might have a chat with each other about, okay, I might change this. I don't like this. Let's talk about this. They might say, you know what, clients, you might need to go back to your mediator because I don't think this part over here is quite developed enough. I think you might need to go back. Or they might just say, you know what, this is looking pretty good. I'm going to convert this into a separation agreement, and each party and each lawyer are going to sign the agreement. Okay, then it becomes a separation agreement. Okay, and some mediators do draft that separation agreement right from the start, and some prepare a report.
Yeah, that's the comment from the crowd here.
Yeah.
Just to read it, some mediators draft the separation agreement, which parents can take to their respective lawyers for review and advice,
yes.
and then possibly modification, and possibly, that's it. We'll sign off on it.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly right.
Right.
So you can see that your last question was where do mediators and lawyers kind of have to work together? Yeah, there's a whole lot of working together to make the lives of each other easier in this process.
So what you did use the word that you hope the mediator would tell them. My experience, go get independent legal advice or to get this reviewed.
Yeah.
I mean, what is mediation? Mediation is where individuals have ownership of their decision making. And relative to the court system, the justice system, the system has actually ownership of decisions. If people can't decide together, though, within the system, there are opportunities for them to agree on consent or voluntarily agree. So that there is that possibility within the system, though ultimately, if they can't and they're still fixed on their own positions or perspectives, and they're in the system, they're giving ownership for the decision makings to be imposed on them by the judge.
Yes.
And then the judge makes an order. And that's what people walk away with, regardless of whatever they wanted. It's the decision is up to the judge to place on the family and the parties to that. And mediation is the different type of approach where ownership will rest. So my experience is in trying to tell people to do something as a mediator. I use words like encourage or strongly suggest, because of the whole thing of self-determination being resting in the parties or the people's hands and minds, because they have to know that they do have that control.
So here's what I tell people when I'm doing mediation for them. I say, so I say to them, it would be a good idea for you to get independent legal advice, okay, after I've drafted this agreement, or maybe during the process with me. Why? And then I explain the reasons why, and I'll go through those reasons in a minute. And that's the tone that I use. And if they say, you know what, I don't think that's a good idea for me or whatever, then I say, okay, that's fine, right? You have a choice. You don't have to do that if you don't want to. And I'm certainly not pulling your ear and taking you to go see a lawyer. I can't do that. So if you're not going to do it, that's okay. But here are the two reasons why I tell people to go and get independent legal advice. The first reason is that sometimes what the lawyer actually is going to tell you is useful to you. Sometimes they will pick up things that were not actually properly discussed in mediation. Sometimes even if everything is done correctly, maybe even just getting that confirmation from a lawyer that, you know what, this is a good deal for you. I endorse this deal. Good job, right? That's also sometimes useful for people, and they're willing to pay for it. The second reason is that when you get ILA, the lawyers sign the Certificate of Independent Legal Advice, which is found at the end of the separation agreement. And that certificate says that each party has received some legal advice from their client, has received legal advice from their lawyer, and that they are signing this agreement without duress, voluntarily, and they know what they're signing. So that in the future, it is not possible for a client to go to a judge and say, Your Honor, I didn't know what I was signing. I would like to set aside this agreement. Oh, well, you've got a certificate of independent legal advice here that says that you had legal advice. So clients go to their lawyers for that peace of mind, for that certificate. And that's what I tell people. And I find that 99% of the time, my clients say, oh yeah, I'm going to get independent legal advice. And they do, because I do follow them.
Because the ILA, the independent legal advice, is basically giving them information as to their rights or entitlements relative to their interests. And then it's up to the individual to decide on their own what to do with those two dynamics of rights relative to interests, whether they want to continue with what the document says or to seek to modify it with the input from the lawyer,
Yes.
to then maybe go back to the mediator and say, well, this is what happened from my end. What happened from your end?
Right.
And so let's include that additional information to make this agreement more fulsome, more representative of the things that it's somewhat lacking.
Yes, that's right. And just a word about what happens in an ILA meeting. So a meeting with
how about you explain that? Like if someone was to contact you, what's the ILA meeting about?
Okay, so again, putting on my ILA lawyer hat now, right? A minute ago I was the mediator. So now I'm the ILA lawyer because I happen to do both. I don't want your listeners to be confused with the possibility that I can be both a mediator and an ILA lawyer at the same time. I cannot do that.
And even when you are practicing as a mediator, you can reference in some way that you are a licensed lawyer,
yes.
Though in this role, in this situation, I'm here functioning in this as a mediator.
That's right. So as an ILA lawyer, I am doing legal advice for clients who are in mediation with another mediator. Okay, so client calls me and says, hey, I have recently, I'm working in mediation with so-and-so mediator, and we have figured out all the terms of settlement. And in fact, I have a draft memorandum of understanding, and I'd like to get some independent legal advice on it and sign it with you. That would be a very direct and sophisticated, I think, client who would say it that succinctly. But anyway, so what I would do is I would meet with that client and we would go through the agreement, and I would also, I would give them my honest opinion about, again, what I was saying earlier, how the legal model stacks up against what they are potentially agreeing to in the agreement that they're going to sign. The client and I may decide that I'm going to make some changes. If so, then I'm going to approach the client's spouse's lawyer and say, hey, listen, we'd like to make some changes. And occasionally, sometimes it could be that my client, I say to my client, listen, I think you should change something here. And the client says, you know what, it's okay. I don't think that's necessary. Okay, that's definitely okay. It's definitely okay for a client to tell me, you know what, Neeraj, I don't think we need to go there. I think we need to change that. 99% of the time, I'm going to say that's definitely okay. The 1% of the time I'm not going to say that's okay is if I feel that it is so important that this change happen, that further clarification be made, because I think that if my name is on this agreement, it's going to come back to bite me as a lawyer. Okay, and I know that it's also not going to be good for my client. So in general, I would say that when I talk to clients about here, I really think we should change this. Most clients do say, yeah, I think that's a good idea, or I see your point, or whatever. And I'm not there to make unnecessary changes. I am there to support the work that the clients did in mediation. Some lawyers, you get in the hands of the wrong lawyer who is not mediation friendly, and they just tear up that mediated agreement, unravel it completely.
Well, let's unpack that.
Yeah.
Those two words. The lawyer or the professional who's not mediated, mediative supportive.
Yes.
What does that look like, or what can that sound like?
Well, it is the kind of lawyer who tends to be, I guess, adversarial, perhaps a litigator, and who, I mean, it's very hard for me to tell you what that lawyer looks like, but you just know, right? And and every case is different, right? Like sometimes the lawyer is right when they say this agreement that the mediator did wasn't great and we need to fix this and this. And sometimes lawyers are just causing some problems.
Well, you know that because you're quote the lawyer and the mediator. You know the two dimensions here.
Yeah.
There are people though as clients who are not as sophisticated to appreciate what is the backstory of what's happening really. Yeah. And so they are putting their faith or trust in that professional. And they are then at, I won't say risk, though they, in some ways, sometimes that is a risk.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so here, I actually just thought of a better way of saying what I want to say. So a lawyer might look at a mediated agreement and say, you know what, you could do so much better in court. Let me take you to court. Under my wing, I think you could do so much better. But what that lawyer is forgetting is the price that client might pay by getting more in court, what they lose in terms of the intangible. And in mediation, we as mediators, we're always trying to help our clients to also see that intangible. Is it, how much fighting do you want to do? How much peace of mind do you want? What kind of relationship do you want with your spouse after this separation is over and you've reached a deal? Sometimes I think that more adversarial lawyers forget that part. And they really are so hung up on, this is what you could get in according to my calculations. And they're not listening to the client say, yeah, I get that, but I also want to have a good relationship with my ex-spouse.
And that's where I'll tap in that it's about the difference with rights relative to interests. Yes, I know I'm entitled to all this. I know I have a right to all this. At the same time, I'm looking at the bigger picture here. The relationship as co-parents, if they're two parents and there's children, that is more valued to me and us than, quote, the hypothetical, because you never know when you go into the system what you actually will realize.
Yes.
And there's a journey because there is costs.
That's right. Lawyers and litigators in particular are not looking at compromise necessarily. They are looking at what is the best that my client can do, not necessarily what is the best that this family can do. And God bless them, they're doing their job to the hilt and they're doing what they need to do. But that is not something that we're trained as litigators, lawyers, in terms of what is best for this family. And where your client needs to give in actually to get something else.
And whenever people do retain or connect or hire a professional, whether a mediator, a lawyer, or an ILA lawyer, there's a cost. So without saying what the fee is, how do you cost your service as an ILA lawyer?
Well, it's so I mean, the cost of you see, the thing is that when you do mediation and you reach a deal in mediation, about 90% of the work is done. So the ILA lawyer usually comes in at the very end and might spend let's say between 3 and 5 hours of their time, and they'll help the client sign the agreement and they're done. So that's all the ILA lawyer is doing.
So how do you figure out what the cost is for like if someone contacts you, how do you explain the cost?
Well, I simply tell them what my hourly rate is. And I mean, I'll tell you what my hourly rate is $3.25 an hour. And I'll say, look, it's probably going to take between 3 and 5 hours of my time.
So you'll give a guesstimate, an estimate, which is an educated guess based on your experience and what this seems to be.
Yep.
And then you'll go with the process to find out actually what ends up being the final result.
That's right.
So would you call that unbundled service?
Yes, I would.
Or limited scope, or another term?
Yes, exactly. That's right. And there is even just a shout out to a website called the Limited Scope Services. I forgot It's Family Law Limited Scope Services Project or something like that. And if you Google those words, you will come up with a directory of lawyers who provide unbundled services, of which the ILA lawyer is one of them.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So people can know that there is the full retainer lawyer who,
Yes.
you know, you pay basically, let's just say a deposit of sum of money, and then the lawyer does their service, and they deduct the time, cost, whatever from that amount, and then, you know, periodically it might need to be topped up or.
Well, Greg, to be fair, I do the same thing in this
Well,
context.
so yeah, so that's what I wanted to present it, and then I want to go back to you. How do
Yeah.
you do, because I want to explain, get the explanation of these concepts out, so it's
Yes.
understood, the difference for people to better understand in limited scope or retain. I forget the other term right now.
Yeah, I'm not sure there is another term. What you're talking about is a client who comes to a lawyer and says, I'm separating, help me out, and help me out from the beginning, where there's no mediator. And what that lawyer does is they do negotiating, and they might take that client to court. And in that context, they take a retainer. Usually they take a retainer up front and they work through that retainer, and then if they need more, then they ask that client refresh that retainer. And the same thing happens when you have a limited scope kind of agenda for your client, is that you also take a retainer. It's just that the limited scope means that the client is saying to the lawyer, look, this is all I want you to do. I want you to come in and just do this little piece, and I'm going to pay you for that. That's all it is. Versus, I need you to do everything for me.
Which also does mean that if you go into court and there's a filing, the lawyer on full retainer will go, quote, on the record. Their name is on the documents, whereas someone
Yeah.
like you does not go on the record. Do you?
Well, okay, so that's only because I don't do court work. But
Don't worry. It's just to clarify some of these.
Yeah. But just to say, Greg, there are lawyers who provide unbundled services who go on the record too. You could still go on the record in court and still have a very limited scope for what you're going to do. For example, a client can say to, I just want you to go into court for this particular motion. Mm-hmm. And that's it. That's all I'm going to pay. That's still called limited scope.
I know. It's just from my experience, and you correct me if I'm wrong, the lawyer's name does not go on all the documents. If there's continuing presence, they're hired as an agent, let's just say, on the day of court, to represent the interests of their client, to try to get to a better place.
Yes.
And they may not come back next time.
Yes, that's true. That is true.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how does the ILA and the mediator working together make the difference?
That fundamental question. And I want to say that I give seminars on this. And so my answer is not going to be completely succinct. I'm going to try and be kind of just go through the points, okay? But the first one is for the mediator to understand what is the role of an ILA lawyer. A lot of mediators don't quite understand what it is that an ILA lawyer is doing. They think that an ILA lawyer is just simply going to read the contract over with the client and say, do you understand this? No, it's more than that. An ILA lawyer has to run the calculations and has to, as I've said a couple of times already, tell the client, here's what you could get in court, here's what you're getting in this deal. Okay, that's the number one thing. The other thing I think that mediators can do in working with ILA lawyers is for the mediator to give a bit of a preview to the clients about what they can expect. What is the cost of an ILA lawyer? How long will it take? Those kinds of things. The third thing is, I know I'm really going fast here. The third thing is the mediator needs to know what are their, they need to know some law. The buck stops with the mediator. In my mind, the buck does stop with the mediator in the sense that if the mediator starts to mediate terms with the clients and the mediator does not understand certain legal principles and the clients become solidified in that agreement, and then each client takes it to their own lawyers, and the lawyers say, what happened here? That you guys are so way off the legal model, and this certainly does not work. The entire thing can unravel. Okay, this is a problem. This is a real problem that, there are some mediators, unfortunately, out there who are biting off more than they can chew in terms of doing financial mediation in particular, where it has repercussions, and the clients get really upset. They get very upset because they've spent so much money and time in mediation, and the lawyers come in and unravel it. And it's not always the fault of the lawyer.
So let's present, one comment here. The ILA lawyer can also remind the clients that what they, quote, could get in court is never guaranteed. There's never an assurance. You'll never get a lawyer writing down, okay, you could get all this, put it in writing. The lawyer will never put their name to paper that's the guarantee. I can appreciate, right?
100%.
So
100%. But I'm not talking about those kinds of things. I'm not talking about a lawyer. You could have gotten 150,000 and you're settling for 100, right? I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about all kinds of things that people are agreeing to in mediation where they didn't get enough legal education in the room with the mediator, and they make decisions that really have real repercussions, more so than a couple of bucks here or there.
Well, let's put it to play. There's some of us mediators who really support the notion of self-determination. So yeah, as a mediator, you've got all this training too, and that what people are agreeing to could be, if they went with the rights base or the entitlements, they would have a different perspective that's expressed on their memorandum of understanding or the mediation report.
Right.
So for one, if you encourage somebody to go see a lawyer or get a lawyer, whatever, get legal advice, and they say no, what do you do as a mediator here?
I say okay. I say okay, as you wish. I've told them the reasons why you should, and if they don't, then that's okay.
So how do you come to some kind of confidence that what you've worked with them to create may not be unraveled, if in the event of?
Well, I think I'm a little bit at an advantage because I'm also an ILA lawyer, and I know what things in an agreement an ILA lawyer is going to have a problem with, right? Like I'm always conscious of that when I'm mediating. When I'm acting as the mediator, I'm always conscious of, okay, your lawyer's going to have a problem here, your lawyer's going to have a problem here. Let's try and work it out, okay? So that's what I'm always doing. So it is possible that clients who don't get ILA lawyers involved, could regret it, even my mediations. It's possible. And that is a risk that the clients have to assume when they don't go to see ILA lawyers.
And so putting on your other hat as the ILA lawyer, and you've gotten a document to review with the person who's hired you, and you say, you know what, you're entitled to this. You can be somewhat more directive in this kind of context, I believe. as a
Yes, you
lawyer
can
to a
be.
client relative to a
Yeah.
mediator,
Right,
because you can give the context of legal advice as a lawyer client
right,
relative to legal information
right,
when you are the mediator with the parties.
right.
So if someone says to you in return, no, I'm not interested, I don't want that, how might you respond to that?
Then what I would find a way to work with that client in terms of expressing why they don't want that in the agreement. Okay, so give you a good example. A client is entitled to child support, or actually child support or spousal support, and and I run my calculations as their ILA lawyer, and I say, look, you could be entitled to this. I just want you to know that. And they say, Neeraj, it's okay. Well, I don't want it. Okay, tell me why. Okay, great. Because my spouse is going to have to carry the matrimonial home, and she will need to pay for the mortgage every month. And this is really important for our children until they finish high school. Okay, let me make that clear in the agreement. 99.9% of the time, my clients have very good reasons for why they are doing what they're doing. And what I do as a drafter, as a mediator, or as a lawyer, I just make it really nice and clear for a third party, such as a judge, years later to potentially look at it and say, okay, I know exactly what happened here. I understand why they did what they did. Make sense?
Yeah. So I do want to share the comment, last one there.
Yes.
Do you not love the impromptu role plays Greg is putting you through?
I do. I have no problem. I like it. No, I think this is wonderful, Greg. I think these are wonderful questions. These are wonderful questions. I did have. Sorry, I just wanted to say I want to give you a better example of where an ILA lawyer can genuinely have a problem with what somebody in with what's happened in mediation. Okay,
Please share that. Yeah, for sure.
yeah. So I mean, assuming that the basic calculation, the basic child or spousal support calculation, is completely wrong. The wrong inputs were put into the calculator, right? It happens to all of us as mediators, by the way. But that can really, if the lawyer finds that out and the client gets like, oh my God, I didn't realize that, and I'm not okay with that. Well, now you have opened things up, and the lawyer has no choice but to open things up. That does happen.
Well, I still say that opening it up is really with the best intentions and interests, yes, to help the client.
Yes.
And, it can be framed in a way that, hey, this will be helpful, rather than, destructive in some way to undermine things.
Oh yeah, no. I don't believe in bad mouthing or undermining.
No, I know you're not saying that.
It's how I will say to my clients, say, look, you know what? It looks like this calculation was not done correctly. Here it is. And what do you think?
Yeah, now that we have this new information, after we've come to realize certain things, so what do you think about that now? Like, how will this impact the decisions you've made to this date? Yes. How would you see possibly changing that moving along?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that's just to inject the positivity, even when something can be processed as initially being, quote, negative or destructive. Mm-hmm. The reframe can always present it on a more positive pathway.
Yes, absolutely.
So the comment, what I find concerning sometimes is the lack of financial acumen of ILA lawyers. And this is not disparaging you in any way, and that's not meant for you. I mean, it's the same with any profession. Some do the best, and some could be better served by doing other things. Mm-hmm. And then there's another comment. In terms of contingent taxes, income analysis, determination, explanation of post-separation credit and taxes, it falls back on the mediators, really.
Sounds like a financial planner who's writing this comment. And they have, by the way, financial acumen, what I think this person is saying is there's a difference between the legal model and what is a good financial outcome for clients. And we as lawyers are trained to say, no, we are not necessarily trained or have the best knowledge in terms of what would be best for this family financially in looking at contingent taxes, income analysis, determination, explanation, post-separation credits, taxes. We look at what does the black letter of the law say. So sometimes financial planners do put us a little bit in our places, and they are, they can be very helpful in terms of saying, you know what, think about it this way. You may not have thought about it. So I do take this person's point.
Yeah, and she's clarified, I am talking about the legal model financials.
I mean, then, I can say that, some people, okay, some people do, some ILA lawyers also do need training as well. Absolutely. There are mediators who need training, and there are family lawyers who don't know enough about their roles as well that need training. Sometimes we will make mistakes. Yeah.
So, that brings me to ask you, what do you think is not considered enough by ILA lawyers, independent legal advice lawyers, and mediators when mediation is actually happening and maybe even reaches the point of, we got to make the decisions now, we're going to make the decisions, or we've made some decisions? What is not necessarily considered enough?
That the clients are in the middle of this, that they're real human beings who are going through a very hard time, that they're paying good money, that they don't have that, like I just sort of talk off the top of my head about this process. They don't know. Most people are going through this for the very first time. And some of the things that I just say, I take it for granted that a layperson knows what I'm talking about. So I think that's probably the thing that, sometimes I also have to remind myself, wait a minute, you're going too fast, or you're not thinking about it enough from their perspective as a client.
So in what role are you speaking now? As a lawyer or as a mediator?
Both. Because they are having to deal with a mediator, and they're having to go through that process. They don't really know what that's about. And then they're having to go and see an ILA lawyer. They have no idea what that's about. So I would say both. Not for the same client, because I can't be, I'm not saying that it applies to the same client, because I'm not putting on both hats at the same time, but separately, yes.
Well, even with the ILA piece, the lawyer hasn't been actually present in the space with the conversation that's happened amongst the two people,
right? To
be fully privy and, considerate of the other person's perspective that they're not actually, interacting with relative to the client they are.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. They don't know. They're only hearing one side of the story. It's
presented because, human beings being what they are, many times it might be about my interests, self-interest. It's biased, it's filtered some way.
Yeah.
And so the lawyer has to go on a trust factor too.
Right, exactly. I do want to say, Greg, that, about 90, 98, 99% of the time, the ILA that I do for my clients is, smooth sailing. I might change a thing here or there, or I might say, did you think about this? And let me put this in. And that's it. We sign.
Which is the best template to work with, ideally, where people can navigate with the least resistance, the most productivity and efficiency in terms of the cost factor financially, cost factor on their own health, and the cost factor on the parenting relationship that's amongst the two people, so that it's maximized for positivity. What suggestions can you offer for a couple whose relationship is at the point of concern of possibly separating?
Wow. Well, see if you can continue to work on your relationship. Maybe you won't separate. But if you do separate, then the process that you use to separate is just as important as the outcome that you would like to have in terms of the terms of settlement. And unfortunately, if you get in the hands of the wrong professional, it colors the tone and the terms itself that you may reach. So what I might do if I don't know people in this business is please do research. It is no harm for you to call a lawyer or mediator and say, listen, can I just talk to you for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever? I just want some information, right? Most people will be willing to talk to you for free. Not a problem at all. Do that 5 times with different professionals. You will gain something from talking to each professional, something new, some new pearl of wisdom. Don't choose the first person the first person that you have gotten a name for or that you Google. Shop around, buyer beware.
Ideally, yes. I mean, that's the template to try to do to empower oneself. Because it is about a relationship that will be forged.
Yes.
With a mediator and you and the other parent or person or spouse, or you and the independent lawyer, legal advice. It's a relationship. So it's got to be based on communication and trust as the ideal pieces for that.
Yes.
Though, again, being mindful that when people do transition in the relationships, they're not always thinking and feeling the most. They're not at a good space.
Yes, I understand that as well. They have to do the best they can. It's very unfortunate because they're vulnerable at that time.
Yeah.
And they will, they have a tendency to make a decision quickly or to say something quickly that may have an effect on the outcome. I wish I could just say breathe, meditate, calm yourself down, try and make slow decisions, slow your decisions down. That's what I would say.
Yeah, we're going to be going shortly. Comment, ILA does strengthen agreements, and it does lessen the risk of future difficulties, regardless if the parents don't follow their advice. At least they get the information, and the manner in which they move forward is transparent and founded on integrity.
Hear, hear.
What would you say is the learning that people can have from our conversation today? How can you summarize it in some way?
Well, I think most people, for them to just even understand the basic concept of here's family mediation, and as a part of family mediation, it is recommended that after you work in mediation with your ex-spouse, an agreement is usually figured out, is determined, and then you take that agreement to you should, or it would be encouraged that you take that agreement to your own lawyer to get it checked out. And that is what is called ILA. So if you understand even that, I would be very, very happy, because it's just not a concept that people understand or know.
What about even people before they go to mediation? They get the independent legal advice. Hey, come on.
We didn't even talk about that. Greg. How much time we got to talk about that, by the way? How much time?
Unpack it.
Unpack it really quickly. Okay.
No, I didn't say quickly. I mean, okay. Let's be respectful.
I want to be here all night. No,
you do? Okay.
I want to keep talking if you don't mind. So here's the thing. So far, I've only talked to you about an ILA lawyer coming in at the end when people have finished off, figured out the terms. But I have completely neglected to say that an ILA lawyer or lawyer in the background is also very, very useful when people are before mediation, during mediation, and of course, after the mediation. And where that lawyer comes in depends usually on what the clients need. Okay, so for example, a client calls me up and says, you know what, I really am not feeling very confident in mediation, and I feel like I really would like to have a consult with a lawyer before I come into mediation. Okay, great. Let me set you up with an ILA lawyer to do that. And that ILA lawyer can be very helpful in terms of just sort of saying to this client, look, what I don't want is an ILA lawyer who gets the client positional before the mediation starts. But an ILA lawyer who says, look, let me break down a few concepts for you, educate you on what the basic, some basic legal terms, and here's some things you're going to have to think about, and this is what financial disclosure is going to look like, those kinds of things. Calm the client down. Then there are other clients who are in mediation and who might say to me, hey, you know what, I think it would be a good idea for me to talk to a lawyer. I say, absolutely. And those clients, they might need to talk to a lawyer while they're in mediation because they're having a hard time with making some decisions in the mediation process. And I might be the one to say, listen, I think it would be a good idea for you to go and talk to a lawyer now because I can't actually give you that advice. So that, and of course, we've already talked about using a lawyer at the end of the mediation process as well. So ILA lawyers can be helpful throughout the process.
You know what? This might be an opportunity that we don't have to unpack all this at this moment. This may be a good topic for the next conversation to engage the ILA lawyer with the mediator, how to prep the person, how to inform them for the process of mediation. Would you be open to that conversation?
Yes. Are you inviting me back?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, okay. Rather than do the shortcuts, I don't like to do the shortcuts because it sometimes lacks in clarity and people can pick out only the pieces that they hear. So having a more extensive conversation like we've had tonight earlier will provide more space for more information, to empower that person, for that person to get empowered with an informed client from a lawyer and an informed client from a mediator, I think is a more powerful client.
For sure. Absolutely. And I'd be happy to come back and talk about that.
Yeah. So just before we go here, I really appreciate ILA lawyers at the beginning and during the mediation. And then as a mediator, sometimes I stop the mediation until the client goes to receive ILA.
Very, very good. Very good. And I want to also say that for those younger mediators, not as experienced mediators, that's also a wonderful tool to make sure that your clients have ILA lawyers in the background during your mediation, because then those ILA lawyers can also help in terms of some of the legal concepts if you're not feeling as confident.
Well, it's like, okay, some mediators work co-mediators. It's not that the other person as a mediator is a lawyer, acting as a lawyer. They could be a lawyer, though not acting. They're acting as a mediator. The thing is, it's like a co-facilitation in a different format. There's a solo mediator, and then there's the lawyer, the ILA lawyer, who's available, accessible as a co-support, we'll say, to help support the process in some way. Being mindful, though, the ILA lawyer, again, is for one person, not for both clients.
That's right.
We have to clearly provide that space. The mediator is about processing the two perspectives at once, and the ILA lawyer is about processing the one person at a time, respective of the other person having access to their own independent legal advice.
They are on that client's side only. absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Any parting words? How are you feeling? You wanted me to help prep you,
yes.
At the beginning. And so now you don't want to even leave.
No, I don't want to shut up now. I just want to keep talking about this topic. No, I really enjoyed this. I don't think there's anything else that I wanted to say. There are lots of tips. I didn't go through all the tips that I have for mediators and mediators working well with their ILA lawyers. And perhaps another time I can talk about that.
We'll talk about that on our next conversation together, which is about, the journey of ILA before and during the process to complement the mediation process, tips, etc. Yeah, we'll do that for the next, and we'll figure that out together. And have a good night. Okay, so we'll see you soonish, and all the best with your practicum thing coming up very soon.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Be well.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.